I got it going. So can you guys see the recording on this? Or do you
Yes.
guys, okay, so you guys know it's good. Well, hey, first and foremost, really cool to see two of my good friends' faces, and we're all around the country. So I'll start it off and then let you guys kind of piggyback off me for who you guys are and where you're at. And then we'll center around the topic of emotional intelligence today. So right coming at you hot and heavy, and we'll dive into the depths of it, like I said, with some of my good friends. But I'm Harvey Martin. I'm in Minnesota. So I'm in Minneapolis right now. I'm overlooking, this is our first 60-degree day, guys. So I got to see boats in the water, people running through the parks. As you guys know, huge fan of getting my feet into the grass and getting outside into that wood. So I'm a happy man. But I know, Dar, I'll hand it over to you next. You're sort of down in Arizona where it's been brown and hot ever. So go ahead, just give a little bit of a where you're at, background part of it, and then we'll feed down to Pete.
Okay, so I'm so happy to be on with you guys. And yeah, I'm in Scottsdale, Arizona here, and it's actually been epic weather. It's been like 70s and 80s, which we don't have humidity. So it's like the perfect day, and it's sunny, and people are on their, far apart, but they're on their bike trails and hiking, and everyone is outside right now. So it's been great.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Pete, where are you at?
I'm up in the lovely Columbus, Ohio. A homebody with a home gym, so I don't stray too far from home right now. Obviously, those the rules. I've just been doing stuff around the house and reading, man. You know the drill.
Yeah, I know the drill. I know how you guys are. And obviously the cool thing about this is that we all sort of stay connected and push each other from afar. I just think it's cool. I've always thought it's cool to acknowledge where people are at when you're at your different parts of the country or world. The part of our careers that we get to have is we're very exposed to people from all around the world. And I think that that's really cool. It's really unique, especially in a situation where, Dar, you already touched on it, of everyone being outside. That's been really special. I don't think I've noticed more people outside in my life since I remember when I was 10, and I've seen that every day. And I almost think that that's a high benefit about what's happening, the appreciation of the social distancing that's happening in our world right now, and sort of how people are getting back outside and moving, getting close with their people. There's a lot of benefits, which we'll touch on some of those things, and we'll come at it from some of our perspectives personally and then professionally, things we've picked up along the way, and then our own intuition as well. And but from today's category, to sort of center it towards emotional intelligence and see how we can improve that and title it, I'm going to just throw them right on the hot seat here, Dar, because I think that's what you're supposed to do to people. So we take it down, when we're looking at those sort of things and which ways we can emotionally control our senses, which ways we can find peace and progress and these sort of things right now as a human, with either garage training, reading, meditating, sitting in prayer, getting like this and aligning with people who hold you accountable, extraordinary people around the world that you can keep pushing. Pete, when you look at times right now and everything that you've got going and some of the things that are keeping you moving, when you sit down and think about your purpose, we always kind of jab at each other about this, but what are you finding things in this new way of living that's sustaining your urgency to keep progressing while you're at home?
I've always been just a believer that like idle hands would make the devil's work kind of concept. So like you can't sit still for so long. Like obviously I am a believer in isolation, and I think that's one of the cool things that has come out of this and has changed people's perspectives now that a good chunk of your social input is cut off as far as like 3D interaction. So now you kind of get to control who you actually reach out to and who you like people we're Zooming with and maintaining conversations with. So I think it's cool. You kind of get to reprioritize the people you have in your circles. And I think that's probably the coolest thing that's come out for me. Outside of that, dude, like it's fun just to like, even the concept of staying busy. If you have some structure to it, it's pretty cool what you can accomplish as far as like learning skills. I'm working on that CSCS. I have a chapter week book schedule along with like another reading list, and then on top of that I'm experimenting with training protocols and that kind of thing as well. And then obviously I've found time for myself, like with walks and things like that. So I think it's just a cool process to understand, just to summarize, to understand where your social inputs come from, And like we talked about just the, what's the best way you said it? Just the love affair you can have with isolation.
Yeah.
And like a lot of people haven't experienced this before. Like they're constantly wired and overstimulated and in conversations and on their phones with email alerts and text messages and those kind of things. And now that those are starting to get a little mitigated, I think it's pretty cool to see what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. What are you seeing from your perspective, Dar?
I actually think that it's doing a couple of things, because from the mental health side, being a therapist and helping people with the peak performance space, I see people just like, you just said, which is when people start to get alone with themselves, real emotions start to emerge. So people are starting to deal with some emotions and things that they've never dealt with before, because they have to sit and be with it now. It's not, you can't really run from it. You can't numb it. And by staying so busy. So it's good in that way, but it's people experiencing things that they've never felt. So with the right help, you could actually help people through things really well right now, because if you can get through what you're dealing with right now, it's going to help you be that much stronger when you get out there. And then on the other side, it gets people, I love all the benefits of people getting outside more than they've ever been, which I feel like Mother Nature's like, where have you all been? Like, thank you, people. And then people just having more of that family time, connection, right? What you just said, like people are starting to realize, like, who do I want to connect with? And then who don't I? And so this gives people time to start. You have to start writing, like, when we come out of this, what does life want to, what do you want life to look like when you come out of this? And you get to create this. So you could really make this a great incubation period. And then you come out stronger than you were in a lot of ways, definitely stronger mental resilience, because you're trying to set up new ways, and then you have a better connection with people. People are so much deeper in the relationships now, which was needed because we're just going all the time. I actually like that. I feel like it's like a calm pace right now. I don't like what's happening to people's health by any means, but I like the pace is slowed down, and we've gone back to like what's really important in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I love that, Dar. And, Brian and I talked a little bit, I think it was like the first week, Brian, when we spoke about falling to the layer of understanding to the tools that you've been exposed to in your life. And I think that from your perspective, Dar, when you think about the mental health aspect, we are exposed to so many tools our entire life. It's just that overstimulation doesn't allow you to understand them, right? And so think about how many times we've been exposed to reflecting or being grateful or being connected, and how important social connection is, and anything around those realms, right? But then it's almost like wisdom comes to you in the craziest of ways, right? And we are going to come out of this with some resiliency and some high levels of wisdom as an individual, which as a unit of a global world, that's a powerful thing for all of us, right? Now, when from your lens, and when you're coaching and you do fall down and you have that isolation, and it's kind of overwhelming, if you will, at first, if you're not aware of tools or things that you've understood, like what do you think are some of the most basic or fundamental tools that you can have right away and start understanding those quicker than other ones?
Well, I just think like right now, one of the things that just comes to mind quickly is I think people don't know how to identify what their emotion is. It's like, as soon as you start to feel it, what is it that you're feeling? Well, I feel sad right now, or I feel anxious. All right, what's making you anxious? What's making you sad? Hey, where is this feeling coming from? Did this just happen now, or is this compound? Has this actually been there, but it just is, you're allowing yourself to feel it? And I really feel that if people would sit, you could journal through this. Like, what is this feeling? So hopefully if you could call someone to talk through it, it'd be really good. That could help you. But if you want to, like, sit and journal and say, why am I feeling this way? And then once you identify what is this emotion and you label it, what do you do with it? How do you shift it? How do you then take it so that you could work with it and move through it? You can't just stuff it and you can't get around it. So how do you create a plan to work through it? And just even as simple as that starts to relieve some pressure. Because people, it's like, we feel like we don't have control. Well, you can get control of the things that you can control, which is identify what your emotions are and then work through it. And that gives you some sense of like regaining your power.
Yeah, I love that concept, because it's almost, when you do get emotionally overwhelmed and you feel like you don't have control, and that's sort of the panic button, right? Is that come to us more through the journaling aspect of now I have some sort of data collection of understanding myself? Or do you think that that's the importance of social connection? Do you think that that's it, somebody else helps you get through that? Or do you think that this journaling could be so important because then it allows you to identify more with who you are?
I think it needs to be both, because I think that you need to be able to write it down and think it through and feel it without anyone like trying to help you through it right away. Like, feel it, write it, go through it, experience it a little bit, and then seek to talk about it with someone that you could trust and that's a safe space, and process that. You know, someone that I'm working with, when they just brought up an emotion and they were going through something, I said, you know what, I'm not going to say anything, and we will. I said, but I just want you to process this. I want you to write what you're feeling, then I want you to read it back to me and let's talk about it. And by the time they got to talk to me, they were like, they already had some control of the emotion, so they were able to speak it through. Before they couldn't even get it out. And then it allows you, listen, you have control over your mind. You have control over this. You have control over your emotions too. Emotional intelligence is this awareness of your emotion, and then you know what to do with it, and then you know how to manage it. It's like in sports.
Yeah.
As soon as that comes to you, some sort of emotion, you know whether that's going to help you or hurt you. So right in that moment, you make that instant to say, wait a minute, I've got control of this. Because if I do this, am I going to get a technical and be out of the game? You know? Or do I control this and I kind of work through it, and then it's going to propel me? I always tell the guys when they want to go yell out, I'd be like, just like hit yourself on the chest, be like, I got this. And then just use it, fuel you, be like, don't question.
I heard
But
you love that.
You have control over this. And part of this is emotional regulation. That is one of the highest levels of emotional intelligence, when you can have emotional regulation. That doesn't mean any of us are perfect. No one's perfect. It's about making progress. That's what we're going for.
Well, and Brian, I know that I always kind of throw that at you, because when I listen to Dar speak a lot about that, that's something that I've always admired about you, is you've sort of dealt with so many things as an athlete, and you're also a businessman while being an athlete, and then you're also involved with a lot of charity and service events. So you're riding on so many other people's emotions, because you're so much in front of people, and you're at a high level, because as Dar kind of segues into that sport aspect, you're at a high intense emotional level all the time with other people's emotions as a teammate. Right. So it's a little bit different where Dar, you're identifying that and getting this opportunity, but in the moment, even on your own spectrum, like Brian, how do you sort of handle your emotional regulation, even when you're surrounded by so many other people's emotions in high, intense, extreme situations?
Mine's probably stemmed mostly from, obviously, trial and error to some extent. I wish I would have had that emotional, I guess, that self-awareness to do the emotional journaling, because most of what I found out was more me discovering my triggers in some capacity. Like, when am I not being productive? When am I not being a good teammate? When I'm not being a good athlete, whatever, anything on those spectrums. But my thing became creating routines, identifying problems and creating routines that limited my triggers. Whether if I wasn't being productive on my phone or anything, like, I created a routine where I had 8 things to do in the morning that either one made me feel productive, put me at peace, made my body feel good, or made me ready to perform. So those things eventually controlled my emotions. And then once I got around people, like, I just, when I think of emotional intelligence as an athlete, I think more of, it's like a combination of self-awareness and empathy. Because I consider myself a very empathetic leader, where I'm listening to guys. I'm trying to, if I'm in a leadership role, I'm trying to teach guys and make sure everybody's on the same page and control communication. And obviously that's what you're saying, a lot of voices, a lot of I guess a lot of high pressure situations with a lot of high performance athletes, and you get a lot of butting heads and that kind of thing if everybody's not on the same page. So for me, like, that's like slowly earned through respect and trust. And part of that is being like, that empathy side, I think, is paired with vulnerability too. Like, you got to like tell the guys the bad shit sorry, I'm not gonna cuss a lot, the bad stuff that happened to you, in order to prevent them from making the same mistakes. And it's just a cool little intertwining of a lot of things that create that successful emotional intelligence, I guess, inside a environment like professional sports.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I love that you know, one of my words is triggers. So I love that you use the term triggers because it's so, because your awareness really is becoming aware of triggers, right? That's kind of how we started the conversation of you're falling to now being exposed and having to deal with triggers where isolation becomes almost a gift to that reward, right? It's like your mental resiliency improves because now you have to sit there with the trigger and go, well, there's nothing to fill this with, like there's nowhere to go except for nature, which cures all, right? So you got to get outside. But something that I've been coming across as a coach and hearing from a lot of people, and I also would like to get your guys' perspective because I've kind of been trying to seek through it to help people identify problems more, is let's say now you're with people in such close quarters and maybe you haven't been with them as much or as often, and now you're with them all the time, right? And you're getting these triggers, and then you're emotionally in these short, windows of opportunity where you're sort of stuck with them during the situation. So do you guys know where I'm going with this? I'm sort of getting triggers from family, friends, people who are living with you, how you kind of continue to enhance your energy because you don't have control of theirs. How would you guys kind of navigate through, still finding progress, even off of getting triggered from somebody else?
I think one of the things, kind of what Brian was saying, but as far as keeping a routine, like everyone's on you, but if you could say, hey, this is the routine for the day. This is what I want to go accomplish. And everyone communicates what is about to happen. You're less likely to get triggered because they know, like, hey, I want to go work out at this time. It's not, hey, could you take care of this? It's like, no, that they're going to go take that break and go walk, run, work out in their garage, whatever. And so the other part of that is in the house right now for people listening is everyone's got to kind of designate like their spot in the house. That's their alone time. Because when you're all in one space, like everyone needs to know, like, hey, I'm going in where it could be a closet that you're going to go sit and be like, I need really everyone has to kind of define because we're so not used to all being together all the time. So identifying somewhere in the house that's going to be like, that's my time that I'm going, communicating, and then keeping a routine is going to help you. And then obviously know that don't give your keys away to someone else taking your power and letting them trigger you.
Like that.
So go ahead, and this is the best time to work on leveling up to another level on your emotional stability here. But I know it's not easy, and family is the first place that triggers everyone.
Yeah, 100%. I know from my standpoint, I know Brian so well, so I know he and I kind of fall into the category of obsessive drive at times, where you get so dialed in even as your own self, and then all of a sudden you have this new voice going, wait, well, I want some of that time. You go, well, wait a minute, that wasn't part of the plan. So I've been running into that a little bit, but I'm taking from the communicative side. That is true, Dar. That is a leveling up current situation of being very concrete with your communication and then following through with what you're saying, because you're exposed to those elements. Have you dealt with that at all, Bri?
Yeah, I don't think I'm very hard to read. Like even when I say things, my girlfriend just like, you don't mean that. Like, yeah, I don't mean that. Don't come up. That kind of concept. So I know as long as like communication's clear, succinct, like it's like, and you can like give reasons to why you want to do this or feel like I haven't had any issues. But it's interesting. It's more interesting with family as far as the communication starts going, and like just because you're not, again, don't have this ability to connect on Easter or things along those lines. So they're trying to find ways to create space for this relationship to still exist. So it's been, I think that's the interesting thing right now is, again, like the way you continue to communicate, I think will end up being indicative of what happens. Again, like you said, Dar, once we get out of here, I think everybody's circles are going to be a little tighter. Like if you don't hear for somebody from 6 months that you saw 2 times a week beforehand, why was that? Like, were you an escape for them, or was it something that you need in your life? I think it's cool because I'm kind of doing a personal inventory myself, and I think it's just going to be, again, I think all of us are very adaptive creatures where I think we see the best in most things. So again, that's what I think is going on.
Yeah, well, I mean, and even sort of switching gears off of this, but obviously same subject, you know, you're finding a lot of things of, like I kind of segued before we got on the call, of motivation, right? And finding new ways to train, finding innovative ways to train and read and learn and communicate like this, you know, because we are still communicating. And you're right, Brian, you're kind of finding who you want to communicate with, because it's very directed. You know, Dar, you touched on this earlier. I feel like I've created such a deeper headspace of all of the last 4 or 5 years of being a new entrepreneur, where it's like, it just, in the last month, I've had time to be alone with all of that experience and start diving through what I liked and didn't like. Because, I mean, for me, what's been really beneficial is I feel like I'm not in a meeting all the time now. You know, where before all this happened, it was like a luxury to get to read, you know, or a luxury to get to be alone and take a walk, because everyone wants your time, right? So you're going into these meetings, and now there isn't that opportunity. And so it's been really progressive for me. That's where I've seen a lot of success. And then funneling that energy, you know, one thing that we have to really dial into is isolation still demands energy, right? Mentally, emotional, and physical. We're still in a position where you're a human that wants to get rid of energy, wants to adapt, wants to be stressed, wants to feel progressive. And there's a lot of peace and progression. So we can find ourselves having a lack of motivation, or we can find ourselves in such a fear state of health, economy, all these sort of things. And it takes away our creativity, where if we allow that to happen, emotional IQ here, if we allow that to cement us down, then we don't have these experiences from, I call it the old world now, you know, the old world, to sort of formulate our thinking going into the new world, and finding motivation in the moment and finding ways to progress. And so I just kind of want to throw that out at you guys. Have you guys noticed some similarities there with your own personal selves? Anything that you've really been able to peel into, that you found some new creativity or new creative space that's come out of this?
I definitely think, like I said, feeling like the palpable pace of the world just slowed down, allowed me to be able to be more reflective in my work. And the work that I do, I've actually been on videos more than I've ever been all day, you know, serving and pouring into, but that, I don't mind that at all. And it's like people are finally hearing some things that they needed to hear now, which is going to be really good, because I hope that translate when they come out. And to your point, even about energy, which is, I think people were starting to wake up to what they were numbing themselves with, and they're sitting and feeling where they could shift their energy, what's been most productive. And going out of this, I really hope that, like when you're talking about the meetings right now, which I hope we all come out of it and say, why do we need 10 million meetings over and over? And we're all starving for that, like, 10-minute walk, or like, no, like, how do we reframe how we do business and life and meetings again? Does it need to, it could be shorter. Let's just be more efficient and effective, so that we can connect more with the things that we want to.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Go ahead, Pete. I know you're barking down there.
I got a lot of thoughts on this. I think the coolest thing that, like, you actually designated as like a physical space in the house kind of deal, but I think just like, we literally have a guaranteed month of space right now of social distancing, whatever. But that space can be used for so much stuff that it's incredible. Like space in your mind, space in your heart. Like this is my first time I got to paint in a very long time. To sit down and paint again. But like, dude, that I think it's just incredible what we got done out of necessity in 2 weeks. We, like, every single school from K to grad schools online. That's going to take the world in the future. Now kids are going to have to go into debt in order to get a college degree. Like, they're like, the world is going to be changed after this. I'm pretty sure that's concrete now. But I hope we gain more space from it. Like the same thing you said, like, when these meetings can be fast tracked from home, I guarantee a lot of companies are going to be just as efficient with all their employees at home. So why are they paying for an office space? So all this stuff I think is going to get fast tracked. And I hope, again, like, that people will choose that space wisely and choose to go on the walk and be active and healthy. listen to the MindStrong project and stuff like that, you know?
Nice. Nice. No, I agree tremendously. I think that it really does make me happy. I went for a walk on Tuesday. I went for a walk on Sunday, and there were so many people out. And the one thing I noticed tremendously was everyone smiled at me. I smiled at them. They smiled at each other. It got so oblivious that people were caring for people they'd never met that I actually stopped to just observe.
Mm-hmm.
And it was happening over and over and over again. And the beauty of that is the fact that the globe is truly connected, you know, and I've never experienced anything like that. None of us have, right? We've never experienced that ever. And we're all in the same problem-solving situation together. And I think that that is miraculously awesome. I think that that's a beautiful thing. And you're right, Bri, you're right, Dar, in the sense of, you know, use this space, use this creativity to shape your mind. You know, in times of struggle, you go to the necessity of the basic needs of humanity and you execute them. You know, you discipline your morning routine. You get up and you shape the way you need to think, and you put that into perspective of how am I going to use the energy in a progressive way today, right? And that's stressing the organism as we know, and adapt it. You can still do that, right? It's so many different levels. And then eating well. It's such a cool thing to have health at the forefront of all of our minds right now. You know, this is a health crisis. So let's ring the bell here, right? And let's pay attention to our hydration, our nutrition, and then move. You know, again, going back to the smiles, I'm a believer of the smiles come because of the movement, right? The exposure, and people are moving and they're in this together. And then it's centering us to the lack of stimulation is going to improve your sleep quality. And so I agree how we started it, going back to what you said, Dar, of mental resiliency. Well, I mean, that is all part of the process of journaling and executing on that time right now. I mean, there's no better time to get to the basics and just really dial it in. You know, we get a lot of questions of, well, what's the best way to do this? What's the best way to do that? The best way to do anything is just get to the basic necessities and just ask yourself if that feels good or right. And if it doesn't, let's figure it out, right? But if it does, then just make that happen more and more. And I do believe in the simplicity of what I just said, of just keeping it very simple. And we find a lot of peace in that. We find that stillness and that quietness and that calmness. And it opens up the opportunity to have conversations like this at a very high octane level, because you're able to exhaust energy and do it and think of it. So I love the way we're at. I'm really fortunate to be with you guys in the tribe and obviously the spider webs of other tribes that we're all connected with. But it's important to share a conversation like this and continuously hold each other accountable, even where we are in the country, and know that when we do get to see each other, we'll all hug and embrace each other and celebrate a cool time that we all got through together. But
you all were supposed to be here in Sedona.
We were,
right?
Next week. Yeah, next week. So that was going to be us down in that sunshine. But so I think it's a beautiful side from my standpoint. I love asking you guys questions. So to kind of center it towards finishing through emotional intelligence, digesting everything we just talked about. Dar, can you sort of take it from what you're seeing on the basic necessities or any movements or anything you're seeing?
I think I just want to add value to this, and that what I hope people realize is that less is more. Mm-hmm. That sometimes we think we need so much of everything, stuff, anything. It doesn't matter. It doesn't even have to be material, but like how much we actually need is a lot less than what we thought we needed. And so energy around that, like we're so much more resourceful in a lot of ways right now, that people are going to be the ones that are going to propel forward, are the ones that are going to be the most resourceful from this. And I just think let's stay innovative. And the other thing is, no one could ever take away from you. While we feel like we're losing a lot, I want to remind people, they can't take away your faith, whatever it is that you believe. They can't take away the education or what you're learning. So keep learning while you're home right now, everything you can, because you're building at that point. And no one could ever take that away, which makes you so much more valuable. So you have, that's control that you could have. And that's something no one could take away, anything that you learn, and you always grow from it. And then the other thing is to see what you now kind of what we shed, like look at how while I want restaurants and everything to stay in business, I love the takeout. You're finding out how much actually making your own meals or having healthy foods. You didn't have to go out to a restaurant every night, or people are maybe buying things differently. And I want our economy to thrive, but we have to find different ways. And I think people are going to be a lot more resourceful. And I just, in the talk that I did the other day, I said, look at history. People came through the Holocaust. They came through the Great Depression. We got through 9/11. Like, we're going to get through this. But every time we get through it, this brings us together. But what we don't want is then we go back to old ways, old thought patterns, old whatever it is. Like, let this be a new turn for you. Keep learning, keep building your mind and spirit. And just know that everything that you put within you, good, is going to serve the world in a better way when you come out of this.
I love it. Best of luck, Bri.
Oh, well, no. I think it, again, like, I think the biggest thing that is going to come from this is just everybody's awareness is going to be heightened. I think just like the small conversations I have had outside of my circle recently, everybody's eyes are just incredibly open to the fact that how busy they made themselves for no reason.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I was talking to Anthony Schlegel's wife the other day, and obviously they have 5 kids running around all the time, and she'd wake up at 4:30 to go hit this class, so she'd get home at 5:30 so Schlegs could come lift with the boys, and then they both go on their day and they both work and kids go to school, that kind of deal. And then now that everything is on pause and she doesn't have to wake up and the class is canceled and everything, like, she just she has this incredible sense of calm over top of her.
That's
and
awesome.
she doesn't go back.
Yeah.
But I just think that space that people are gonna either learn to love and maximize, which you're talking about, is investing in yourself, which is never a bad investment. You can never go wrong with from a knowledge aspect or really just like a self-love aspect. But I think people also are going to have to learn who they're fighting most of the time. And again, with isolation, you learn that the person you're fighting every day is yourself. And that's the only person that keeps you from progressing. And it's something I struggle with right now too. And I was talking to Harvey about this earlier, where again, those triggers come up, but at the same time, like, you don't have, like, you're evolutionarily wired to enjoy comfort once you have all the necessities. So you're also still an organism that is supposed to save up energy for the next hunt or the kill or whatever you want to do. So you got to understand you're fighting a lot of things, mostly your evolutionary wiring and what's going on between your ears to be productive. So I just think if people learn to maximize the space, I think a lot of great things are going to come as well.
Definitely.
I love it. Well, hey, I mean, for me, selfishly, I could listen to you two talk all the time, and I really, beyond, I can't wait to share this and have people listen to this and sort of create their own patterns of thinking and get some little nuggets out of it. You guys did a phenomenal job of sharing those. But from keeping that aspect of it, it's great seeing you guys. It's great seeing you guys and being able to share a conversation. Yeah, and it's valuable. I mean, when we really center it down, it's a great time. What I take away from it is it's a great time to become very recognized of your emotional states, take pride in having control over your thinking and evolve that and peel into it and collect the data of it. Faith as a confidence aspect is phenomenal, right? Because it's just part of the system. It's part of the process, and it's just going to strengthen you. And that's a beautiful thing to sit with that as well. And then less is more, and just finding a lot of calmness and peaceness. And what's really cool is the three of us are sharing this conversation, but there's millions of people having this conversation too. And that's been really cool to see, hear about, and feed off of that. So, I believe more than anything that we're all tremendously connected. Obviously, we're all connected across the world in this perspective, but you guys are fuel systems for me. And so I appreciate that. I'm very grateful for that. And I'm very excited to have other people get that fuel from you guys as well. So from myself speaking, you typically say from MindStrong when we do a podcast and we're not all together. But for myself, it's very thankful to spend a sundown evening with the two of you over some conversation.
Grateful for you, Harvey, and you too, Bri.
You're a stud, Harvey. We miss you, Dar.
Yeah, we miss you, Dar. Well, we will keep it rolling.
I can't wait till you get to come visit when we can all see each other.
That's the first trip.
Yeah, okay. We'll be there. So everyone stay safe and emotional intelligence. hardwired up.
Let's go.